Make This Make Sense brings together 3 professors and dynamic guests to unpack
the systems, trends, and social dynamics everyone is confused about,
with the women who actually understand them. With your hosts,
entrepreneurship professor Dr. Colleen Robb,
entrepreneurship instructor Annie Stout,
and blockchain instructor Kelly Werder.
Tina Austin is a professor in California, and she helps institutions move from AI curiosity to AI capability, building the programs, partnerships, and deployment infrastructure that make adoption real and sustained. She's created UnBlooms, a reimagining of Bloom's taxonomy for the AI age, now used by educators in 100 countries. The framework includes UnBlooms' critical evaluation scale designed to measure metacognition before, with, and after AI use. She's named one of ASU's and GSV's top leading women in AI in 2025. Featured by OpenAI Academy, interviewed by CNN, and now serves as a technical reviewer for the U.S. Department of Education and advises California's AI and Workforce Board. She's partnered with nonprofits, profits, and the Gates Foundation, Microsoft Duolingo, and Canva on responsible AI.
All right. I'm excited for this guest. And also, you know what else I'm excited for, Colleen?
What?
The chair is back.
Oh, do we have to do the live long and prosper thing?
I think we do now.
Yes, separated.
The Captain Kirk chair has returned.
Yes, you need to get the ears.
I will. I will order them right now.
Please don't. Please don't.
Why? Yours would be great.
It's a bit much. All right. I think we should just get rolling. I'm super excited about this guest that you brought to us, Annie. This is super exciting. You ready? Let's bring Tina to the stage. Welcome, Tina Austin, author of UnBlooms. This is super exciting. All right. Kick us off, Annie.
Yes. Thanks so much for taking the time to meet with us today. And so I'll just kick it right off. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and we're going to make this make sense when we're looking at AI and education. That's primarily what we're interested in, but also any trends that you've seen currently. And why don't you just kick it off and introduce yourself?
Thank you. Well, you've already given me such a generous introduction. I don't even know what else I should say to add to that. I'm just excited to be here amongst some amazing female leads in the world, of amazing women, and being part of this, it means a lot to me because, you know, I really want to, my goal from the beginning was to see how I can inspire or kind of help motivate people that were once maybe in my shoes with, you know, trying to make sense of just not just AI, but also, you know, we have lots of, you know, need for maybe dealing with like institutional validation before doing meaningful work. And, you know, institutions take time to recognize emerging fields, whereas like people doing the work have like already taken the risk. So when you and I spoke earlier about what this podcast was about, it really spoke to me about, you know, how meaningful the work that you're doing is. And that's why I'm glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you.
We sure are. So, tell us right now, where do you say AI and we'll start with the live classroom. So we're all teaching, we're kind of in the trenches. And what can you tell us about how we should be using AI, what you've learned through your research, what is important to remember when you're using an AI framework? And I know you've also created your own framework as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so I started off by being one of the skeptics. I would still consider myself a cautious skeptic and maybe cautious optimist, but also, you know, just starting by like, what does this not do? And then going into what can it do for us? So one of the biggest surprises for lots of educators is like now seeing how much the field has changed, you know, since 2023, where like initially lots of people were trying to frame AI as just like a magic tool. And then what I was seeing in my work was what kind of thinking is the student outsourcing, and what kind of thinking are they still doing themselves? So in the research that I'm following right now, I'm seeing students use AI in different ways. Some are using it, you know, as a coach. And I know lots of people still throw around the term thought partner. But I feel that, you know, we don't want to use it like as a replacement for effort. And I'm seeing in the research, there's lots of, you know, trends and research about cognitive offloading. What does that mean? So the shift is kind of moving away from, did the students use AI? And we know the AI detectors aren't really effective, and moving towards how do they use AI, because AI use itself is not really informative anymore. And so that's where the concept of UnBlooms was born. Actually, UnBlooms was something that I was about redesigning assessment even during the pandemic, and but even more so with when AI came along. Traditional Bloom's taxonomy was, I felt, developed for a world where information was scarce, and creating at the top required a lot of human effort. And as you naturally go up that pyramid, it made sense. But nowadays we have systems that can instantly generate summaries and essays and analyses. So it's not just the create that AI can do, but all those other levels as well. So I became interested in asking a different question: how do humans become responsible for before, during, and after AI enters the process? And so we focus on metacognitive checkpoints and judgment. And I don't know how much you want me to go on, but this stuff is just so exciting. So yeah.
Love this. I think we should do
Yeah.
like setting what is Blooms for people who might be listening to this, who aren't educators, who haven't had to design a course, and then how is UnBlooms different? Maybe we can just do a quick check on that, just to kind of set the level.
Yeah, very happy to. It's actually Bloom's taxonomy is one of the most widely used frameworks in education. It was developed in the 1950s in a way that thinking about different levels of learning. So at lower levels, students might remember, understand information. As they move up, so you have the lowest level, understand, and then you move up, and then you apply the knowledge, and then you analyze the ideas, and then you evaluate the arguments, and ultimately you create something new. And for decades, really, Bloom's kind of helped those educators move towards, beyond memorization, actually towards creating something. And that and the challenge is that it was designed for a world where, humans, creating something meant that you did some cognitive work. If you wanted a summary or analysis, you actually had to be the person to produce it, right? But now, because AI can already create all those for you, the question that I became interested in was to focus away from whether Bloom's is wrong or right, but whether it was sufficient for an AI-mediated world. So then UnBlooms was about undoing what we already knew before, and it shifted the focus away from what a student can produce into how does a student think, and then moving towards, did they critically evaluate the AI's output when they used it? Did they reflect afterward? And whether the tool kind of improved their understanding. And so that kind of gave me an idea of where it will, maybe the focus should not be about, climbing up or climbing down, because some colleagues said, well, what if we just flip this upside down? And the problem with that is it's still hierarchical and you're still climbing a ladder. So I did many shapes created many shapes where it was going through a staircase and then going through a spiral. And then I arrived at this loop where it's kind of like a circle if you look at it from the top. And the focus is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And depending on the problem that you're trying to solve, because everything in life is about solving a problem, right? Depending on the problem that you're trying to solve, you can enter that at different entry points. And once you do enter at different entry points, you might start at analyze, you might start at evaluate. The goal at the end of the day is to be able to solve that problem. So when I do UnBlooms workshops with the faculty, we have a whole list of how they used to do assessment design before and how does it look like now with AI in the picture. So UnBlooms is designed to make those differences visible, and adding those metacognitive checkpoints, and then how much they had to push back. So it's it gets a little bit more technical. It's all in the workbook. You can go find it on Amazon, but this is the gist of it. And when I talk to different instructional designers and folks around the US and different countries, they tell me that it helped them kind of get into the mindset of going beyond what used to be higher order thinking. And it doesn't actually invalidate Bloom's. So the nice thing about it is it can be kind of a choose your own adventure in many ways. So depending on the problem that you're trying to solve, in many ways, you can still do what you used to do with Bloom's, depending if it's a STEM class or a history class. the goal is to be able to produce enough friction and be able to add those metacognitive checkpoints and be able to solve the problem. Can the student solve that problem when AI is taken away?
And we'll make sure to have a link to the workshop as well as other of your writing, et cetera, in the show notes. So if you are looking for that, it'll be in the show notes, listeners. Annie, back to you. You're muted, my child.
AI ethics. What keeps you up at night about how fast this is moving in education?
That's a great question. Depending on when you ask me that question, I could give you a different answer, like a month ago or 2 months ago. I would say that maybe the past 4 months, I've become really obsessed with the research around this right now, because I've noticed that increasingly we have a measurement problem with like what is actually being measured in all these different studies. So people throw around this these viral studies about cognitive surrender or like selective cognition, and then you read the paper and they were just doing like little snapshots of before and after, or they didn't look at it over time, or they did look at it over time, but it was only in one class, and then it was only asking the students if they felt reflective or not. And then the more closer you look at it, then the more you see the inconsistencies and why the narratives online, the people that are kind of spreading these or sharing these papers, usually they've already arrived at a particular conclusion. And let's say if they're pro banning AI, they'll cite like a snapshot or a picture of like a study where like it didn't really go that far, or it was a preprint, or they only looked at 4 people in a particular small area. And then it'll be like some viral, like some really bold headline. And then you actually look into the research, and the authors didn't really do that. So what's keeping me up at night right now, I would say, is trying to find a way to really look at what AI capabilities look like. Is AI making us more capable over time? Trying to answer that question by looking at research that's done in a valid way. And I'm yet to find that, because I know there's like many companies right now that are doing different RCTs, randomized control trials. And I've actually had the opportunity recently to talk to some people in those big companies that are doing this work. And I'm noticing that a lot of this work is still being pieced together, and it's not been made public yet, like the work they're doing. So I'm excited. I'm at the edge of my seat. I want to know what the outcome is, because they also want to make it work, and we all want to see. I mean, in many ways, I'm also pro AI, and I want to see that world, the revolutionizing education, all that stuff, and I want to see that. So I'm really interested in valid studies that are done in a way that are effective and actually see the promise of AI. Like after you take away AI from those student subjects, can they actually do better work?
Right.
Well, and so you used a term earlier, and I don't think I've ever heard it before, cognitive unloading.
Offloading, or
Offloading.
Yeah. What does that look like? I mean, does that have to do with brainstorming? Does that have to do with, like, I know every time in the class where we're like, all right, let's come up with an idea. They all go to their laptops and they just put in the prompt and see what ChatGPT spits out. And then, I mean, even when it comes to like naming products or slogans or whatever, is that what that term means, or does it mean something different?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because depending on sometimes who you're talking to, that could completely mean one thing or another. But in general, cognitive offloading is actually something humans have always done. So we kind of always write things down instead of memorizing them. We use calculators to do things that, like, we would use GPS when we're driving, right? So instead of memorizing every route, when we're using GPS, you are cognitively offloading. And it's not inherently bad. So the question is, what are we offloading and what are we keeping? So like you said, with brainstorming, if you ask 100 students, like if you ask them to generate like maybe 100 different ways to produce names, and then the AI does it for them, did they actually just select the first thing that AI spat out, or did they actually notice the difference between their own thinking with the way AI's metacognition works, and were they able to know the difference and know when to not use AI? So I have like these different metacognitive levels where like the final level is either being able to create or being able to know that this is something I need to resist. And that's the hardest part of all, is being so in working with so much, you've done so much work with it that at that point you're like, no, this is a task that I need to not do with AI, because the human thing is important. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's the effort is more valuable, maybe it's accuracy. So there's like these different checkpoints that we have in the scale. And it's kind of like going to the gym. Like there's a difference between using a machine to support your workout or have the machine do the workout for you. So in both cases, you're interacting with the technology, but kind of like, yeah, I'm going to do push-ups now.
I like that analogy. That's a good analogy. Yeah. Whether or not you're using the machine to help you or whether you're letting the machine do it all for you is a big difference.
I remember back in the day where, we had to write down directions and like, turn left at the McDonald's with the stoplight. Yeah. And, if you got lost, you were done. You were like, I can't reach them. I don't know where the party's at. Like
my brother gave directions. My brother gave directions one time to his in-laws when they were coming to visit for the first time. He's like, and then you go by the pizza place. It's now a gas station, but it used to be a pizza place. And it's like, why are you telling them that?
That's helpful.
Oh my God. I love that you brought this example up, because there was one study that was like viral, maybe I want to say like a month ago. And I think it was one of these studies. It was probably the cognitive surrender one. And I compared it online to that GPS where they gave the subjects AI, and then it was maybe like after 10 minutes, they took it away from them. And it was kind of like if you're mid-driving and then 10 minutes after driving and say, see, well, this was a bad tool because now you're lost, but you took it away from them 10 minutes after they're driving. So like, was that really a good way to do the experiment? You know what I mean? This is the kind of thing we're seeing in the field.
And there really is no handbook. Like we're in the trenches, or at least I am, and I'm trying to figure out when I should use it, how I should use it. But this would be a great thing to have on my bookshelf to go, okay, I'm designing a lesson. This is ultimately what I want them to learn. This is the problem I need to have solved. And is it, I haven't gotten the book yet, but I'm going to get it. Definitely. The workbook. Is it designed for folks like myself that are teaching in higher ed? Like
yes. So right now it's only a digital version on Kindle, and I'm doing I wanted the paperback to be more special and to have more of the examples that actual educators have like practice with me. So I kept telling people like, hold off on that and then wait for the paperback so I can have all this, because I have like maybe over hundreds of logs of people that have like, given me feedback. Amazing. And I want to say, this is how Professor X does it. And this is how, because that's more helpful than me saying, just do this. And people like to see examples. So hopefully that should come out in the next few weeks, or by the time, I don't know if this is released live or.
This one's going to be out in July. I think it's 15th. This will be released. So yeah. So maybe it'll time up perfectly. So if you're, it'll be close. It'll be close. So if it's available, we'll make sure that it's in the show notes or where to look to find out when it's available, for sure.
Thank you. That would, yes. I think that would be more helpful if you got the paperback, because then you can actually write in it and yeah.
Writing? Cool. Like handwrite? What's that? I don't know what that is anymore.
With a pen.
What are you really excited? What are you working on right now that really excites you? And what's the best way to communicate with you?
Thank you. Well, I'd love that you asked that, because that kind of ties back into what I was just saying that keeps me up all night. So after I've been, deconstructing these research studies, and like, I don't know how LinkedIn is so great at like connecting you to people all over the world, and finally like moving beyond, questions about, is this good or bad about AI? I've got multiple people around the world collaborating now, wanting to collaborate. I'm on this University of Oxford Metacognition Collab Lab, where we're working with educators in like Brazil and India and Turkey and Switzerland, all over. We're writing a report on how this metacognition looks like across different countries. And I've also got many people around the world that are interested in actually doing a proper longitudinal study, because after I've been sharing how not to do longitudinal studies, or how the research in my mind didn't make sense, then the authors of those papers reached out and said, well, what if we do it this way? So I'm really excited that they even considered reaching out to me, because I was just at first trying to understand it for myself and say, well, maybe I'm doing this wrong, and pushing back. And then the whole universe reverts back and says, well, what if we do it this way? And do you want to be part of this with us? So it's really cool.
Very interesting. And it seems like, it's kind of interesting is when you criticize somebody's, or not criticize, but give feedback, or, however we want to put it, to have them go, yeah, you know what, maybe we should look at this differently. That's a nice response. That's great to see that, they weren't defensive and actually open to the feedback. So that's great.
I was really honored that most people are very, engaging. Then they start they're following me, and they're like, let's, connect and do this, collab together. And I'm like, what? I didn't even know these institutions existed, or there were so many great people out there doing this type of work as their profession. And for me, it was just a hobby of course I was teaching about AI. Of course I was coming from biomedical research. But when you and I spoke, and we were talking about how my background was kind of being moved towards this direction. So it didn't start this way. And then you meet all the people that were already there in that space that are trying to solve this problem. And you're in this Venn diagram of I have the science background and AI background. And, as women, as you have to earn it. You can't just, it's not given to you, right? You have to really work your way.
So your biomedical background, that makes me, I have to ask this question. What do you think of Midjourney's announcement this week?
I've literally just stopped watching those announcements because I was so in depth, trying to do this thing with the
they announced it's something that's essentially going to take the place of an MRI. So they've been, Midjourney has been early on mostly around images and image creation and through prompting. And they've now taken all of that they were doing that felt like a game, if you will, that is now being put into this device that will image in a much deeper, more detailed way with AI, and sort of take the place of a traditional MRI and give much more depth. And I'm assuming, probably not at first, but down the line would also be more cost efficient. So yeah, I wasn't sure if you caught that, because that looked very interesting. It was,
I think it definitely sounds interesting. From what I've seen with medical imaging, it's one of those areas that AI has been showing promising results. I've been, when I teach this topic, I have radiologists and or sometimes people that are already in the medical profession that are attending these workshops. So healthcare is really a great example of where, yes, is doing well, but also human expertise still is very important. An MRI, is part of a larger clinical context. You still have patient history and symptoms and all those that you can't just completely give all the way to the AI. So judgment and all those things become important. But yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. Go ahead, Colleen. Sorry.
I'm just wondering, are there rookie mistakes, particularly in the medical field, that, doctors or nurses or whomever that are diagnosing a patient are using AI inappropriately, or not necessarily inappropriately, but relying on it maybe too heavily? Are there typical mistakes that you see?
Yes, all the time. And I'm sure you've seen some of them on LinkedIn where, there's not just that they're offloading to the machine, but for example, the AI doesn't really identify those abnormalities in those medical images very well. Wait, yeah, I don't know if you want me to repeat that.
Yeah, let's repeat that. We just lost you there for a second.
Yeah. So with medical imaging, especially, there's lots of abnormalities that come up that in medical images, and it's not right 100% of the time. Even with computational biology, when I talk about how AI predicts, for example, can predict the next protein or model protein in the sequence, it's not right 100% of the time. So clinicians have to and they have to also be able to understand the material themselves before just accepting AI output. So AI is never going to be 100% without any flaws. This is the same as a human, and it's kind of trained on some biased data often. So you want to make sure that your questioning was this trained on a particular demographic? Was there correlation causation problems? I don't know if you saw, I did this workshop earlier a couple months, and then someone put it on YouTube. It was about the early days of ChatGPT, where they had medical rulers in those images with cancer cells, and then AI was picking any image with a ruler, was saying this is probably cancerous. And so there's issues with correlation causation, and it's not an argument about whether AI is great or not. I think we, like I said, humans have those issues too, but just kind of knowing when to have your own critical thinking, and just because AI is present.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you look up your symptoms on WebMD and automatically you're dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
But even for little things, like I asked Chat to just give me a list of every single #1 song on my birthday, and it literally got the 2026 one wrong. It pulled it up, and I'm like, that's not right. I'm like, that's absolutely not right. And then we went back and forth for a little bit, and I'm like, no, you got it wrong again. Let's try one more time. I'm like, I'm literally looking at Billboard. I know exactly what it is. So it sometimes just doesn't pull the right information. So you definitely need a human who's checking it, especially when you're talking medical. I mean, that's not something you can play around with.
It's just common sense. We talk about the 10 big issues with AI. One of them is bias, one is hallucination. Common sense is one that's less talked about, and that's one of them. You saw the car wash example. I'm sure you heard about the car wash example where I see you nodding, Kelly. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the AI would say, it's easier to walk to the car wash, but you still need a human to say, well, that's not how it works.
Right there. Why it's closer. It's closer if you walk.
Just walk.
I had not heard that. That's a great analogy.
If you drive, it's going to take you so much longer. You just walk right there.
Well, I recommend to look up this video, because it's about this guy who asked all these different models. He asked Gemini, he asked ChatGPT, he asked Claude, should I walk to the car wash if it's only a couple yards away? And all of them say, if you want to get some fresh air, just walk there. And then he's like, well, how would I then wash my car? And then the AI just stops. So then this is an example.
You can almost see the AI going, oh,
yeah.
Oh, good point. Probably going to need that car for the car wash.
I just use it as an example in my workshops for people who say, just take the output from ChatGPT and put it into Claude, and then take that and put it in Gemini. And it's if it's wrong, it could be wrong all the way, and it could be wrong.
For sure.
Are there anything that you have used in the classroom that's worked particularly well using AI or any?
Yeah. So once we get past the things that AI can't do, we jump into the things that AI can do really well. And, early days, as soon as they had custom bots, custom GPTs, I was using custom GPTs in my classroom for students to have a TA around the clock, to kind of prepare themselves for job interviews, to kind of work, kind of prep before the exam, the final exam. There's many ways to use custom bots, but now with agents, I've been using Codex for building skills for, and when you say skills, what does that even mean? So for automation, for certain things, an LMS that you're working with, in many ways it can be helpful, but I think a lot of people are still wait, I don't even need to use agents, or what's the difference between agents and custom bots, or they're still in those stages, and I don't blame them. I mean, unless you're like deep into the field, like using it every day, it's not intuitive. But I have a lot of good use cases and that I write about on my Substack, and like, I'm happy to share the link.
That'd be great.
That would be
Yeah,
really
definitely
great.
make sure we have that link, because we'll want to share your Substack, especially because I'm sure that's where you'll be dropping updates on all the things that you're seeing out in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Annie or Colleen, we're kind of coming up on our time here. What other questions do you have for our guest before we wrap?
So if we get this wrong, and somebody is using AI, and I can think of some cases where we're just giving the students the tools, and we're not asking them to, write down the exam at the end of the semester and say, how did I get to that point? Is there fallout from that in terms of, a student goes through the higher educational experience and they've just kind of used AI and all of Blooms traditionally? What does that look like, that fallout?
Well, I wouldn't say just going through Blooms traditionally is going to like cause any fallout. The idea with UnBlooms is just to kind of be able to think outside the box and not just have them like generate an assignment and come back to class when anyone can do that with AI. I think we don't really fully know what that will look like. That's why I'm so interested in the research, because there's lots of evidence that AI can improve short-term performance, but we have less evidence on what it will look like after years of use. So again, like that personal trainer analogy, is kind of like if I hired one to lift my weights for me, I might still get through the workout, but would I get stronger over time or not? So that's the concern that we're trying to like figure out how to do it. And so in a way that we're not having the trainer do the workout, we're having the students work with the trainer, know when to like give the weights to the trainer, know how to like balance it, and when to kind of like do the work on their own, because the value is the work that they do by themselves. So imagine graduating in a world where your professor banned AI, like your school never let you use it.
Right.
And now you're competing with job applicants who kind of maybe had experience working with AI.
Right.
And then you have someone else that developed a judgment on when to use it, when it was a bad idea. And then you have those three people go in for the interview. Which one do you think would be more capable?
Great example.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
great point.
That is a great point, and one that I think you will communicate with stakeholders very clearly. Which one are you going to hire? Because I think that's ultimately our goal. So this has been amazing.
Fantastic. I know there's so many things we could dive into.
I'd love being here. I love talking to you. I want to hear more from you.
I know. We'll have to do this again after after some of those other research that you're working on is out there, because I'm sure there's a lot of follow-up that we'll have. And it's been great chatting. And if you can hang out for a second after our little closing, we'd love to just say goodbye real quick. But this has been awesome. Thanks so much. And Annie, thanks for finding this amazing guest.
Thanks.
Thanks, LinkedIn. Shout out LinkedIn.
AI makes sense, right?
Right. That's right.
She's making it make sense for us.
All
right.
Make AI.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.